So that's our theme tonight, is to delve into what the modern day head coach position is, and when you're on the learning curve, so Dean Cox and Andrew McQualter at your clubs, is what they're experiencing for the first time. John, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. I mean, we don't want to get the violin out here about the job. I mean, it's a great job, but there's no question that there's some areas that the job surprises you with, and when you first take over, it's really the being the central point of contact for every part of the football club. And Simmo and I got together and had a bit of a chat about this last week. And now, what are the things that you really face with during the week? And we come up with around 15 points of contact, I guess, that really describes a day-to-day or week-to-week coaching role. And we sort of put the head coach in the middle for no other reason other than it was just easier to illustrate. But there's roughly 15 different groups of people that all want a piece of you as a head coach, and that includes the 45 individual players. So, it does, obviously, and that can happen from week to week. Some of the more growing areas over recent years has certainly been the media, and your media person becomes very much a right-hand man and very important to talk with. Psychology is a very important part of welfare. That's a growing part. And the other part of it also is player families, and being close to player families is really important as we try and retain and attract talent. We saw a couple of good examples of that last weekend when a couple of debutants got a game, and the way that senior coaches really embrace the debutants, and it's a big part of the game that's grown. And you can just see Brad Scott here in the background talking to Angus Clark's dad, and that moment's pretty important. Here's Dimmer talking to really congratulating Leo Lombard's mum as they came in, and there's a relationship there now with the families of the senior coaches is pretty pivotal to just making sure that they're in contact anywhere with everyone. I don't know whether you thought the same thing, Simmo, with your role and seeing how it evolved over time.
Yeah, the mums are interesting because if they're not getting a game, it can work the other way.
Did you get a couple of calls from a few mums?
Oh, I think Alex Witherden's mother, no disrespect what happened here, but they flew over for round one. I don't think he got a game.
Oh, no.
And we were sitting in the crowd watching the waffle, and there was a bit of a no-look situation. But no, look, I think Fags is probably, from the outside, looking at what he's done, in particular with the draft, how, if 6 people get drafted, he's got 6 different flights all around Australia immediately to go and meet the families and put that effort in. So, there's parts of our job that have just got bigger and bigger, and nothing's sort of gone away.
So has that changed? That's fascinating. Watch it. See that slide you put up is unbelievable. So this morphing of the senior coach into the manager as opposed to the coach, is that the reason why? And if a young coach is coming in and thinks he can do it all, is that his first step towards driving himself crazy?
It's a steep learning curve. It's hard to teach it. Horse has had probably the best experience with Dean Cox, about 5 or 6 years together. Right, this is how we do things. Whereas McQualter's had a little look at it as a Richmond interim coach, but to actually sit in the chair and go through everything that Horse has just mentioned, it's another level, and it's those two guys will enjoy the bye round.
So let's lay the week out for us then.
Yeah, well, I think we've got a little snapshot. Horse and I compared our weeks, which they're very similar. He thinks he worked a bit harder than I did, but it's up for debate. But this is 2 travelling teams as well. So I think we've got a visual just of what a week looks like. And, this is a home game, and this is just a Saturday to Saturday. And I won't go through too much detail, but on Monday and Tuesday, they're the biggest because it starts with, obviously if it's a Saturday game previously, you've done a lot of phone calls and reviews over the weekend, but you meet with your match committee, you meet with your leaders, you've got a medical report, you've got media messaging, you've got your meeting with the GM about someone's done something wrong over the weekend, whether it's tribunal or suspensions or someone's done something at a nightclub. And then you got the game review. So you've got to meet your match committee, which used to be a lot longer, but there's not enough time anymore. So you get through all that, you do your game review, and it's 5 o'clock, and then you got Oppo. So the Oppo coach comes in and starts to deliver the message for the next week. And then Tuesday morning is probably one of the bigger days too, Horse, where you're doing training planning, you're out on the track watching training, and all I'm doing is talking to the head of strength and conditioning saying, why isn't he training? What's wrong with him? Why is he limping? He shouldn't be training. And why are the numbers so low? So you spend so much time looking after other parts of the business, eventually you've got to get to the players. So the one-on-one meetings are critical on a Tuesday, but there's not a lot of time around all that. And then you want to try and connect with your staff, and all of a sudden it's Tuesday night and you're getting Hungry Jacks on the way home. And you introduce yourself to your family, and then it's 10 o'clock at night. And Horse, we had similar Monday, Tuesdays. That's a fair call.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the Mondays, I didn't really feel comfortable until the Monday review had finished and the official review with the whole team. And then Tuesday, really, it's about the one-on-ones and that juggle between signing off the previous week and doing your one-on-one chats with, you can't get to 45 players, but you try and get to 20 or 30 if you can. And that includes, obviously, the next group coming through. So you try and get to them, you try and round the week off in their minds, because it's really important to each individual player that they get an opportunity to talk to the head coach, or vice versa. You're sort of discussing things. But at the same time, in the background, you're also planning for the coming week. And in a shorter week in particular, in a travel week that Simmo had to fly, from the other side of the country, those little windows of opportunity to do your planning are very much shortened.
We've got great stuff still to come, so I don't want to dwell on this. But just on that, when was your own time? I didn't see your own time.
Well, that's why Mitch looks a bit angry. And,
so do you have to block out
I think but this is just us, I suppose, and I think every coach is different. So some coaches aren't. They delegate as much as you can, but you're always on. You're always thinking this time of year, especially if it's not going the way you wanted it to go. I suspect the bye rounds are the opportunity to get a bit of a break with the family, and but if you're going poorly, there's a lot of reviews going, and what's our next thing to get better?
So, John, give us the player management side, and you've broken this up into 4 different groups.
Yeah, so we had obviously the 15 touch points on a weekly basis, but the main part of that is the 45 players, and each of those players have their own unique personalities or styles. And I guess we just did a basic matrix. Simmo and I presented to the commission a few years ago at COVID and really broke up the role of the coach and how it really impacts the players and the staff around in the support sense. So I'll start off with the first group of players, if we just bring the graphic up now, and really refer to the players that are often high draft picks, the high talent, high readiness. So the guys that really have great talent come in absolute pros. Physically, they're mature, they're ready to go, they're physically able to, they're mentally able to, high training, great work ethics. You really don't have to teach these guys a hell of a lot. They come into your environment and they pick it up straight away. You don't have to spend a lot of time with those guys. The next group is probably a group that everyone wants to come and see. They're the high talent guys, and they're really super high talent. Each of them have got their own story. I wasn't there at the start of Lance Franklin's career, but for instance, he was probably a bit leaner and a bit skinnier, so he needed to fill out a little bit. So a bit more time spent with him. Dustin Martin a bit differently as well. I mean, Simmo had some personal experience with Jeremy McGovern and Luke Bruce. And how'd you find those two, Simmo? They were a bit unique as well.
Yeah, Luke Bruce is interesting. He's a country New South Wales boy. And when I got to Hawthorn, he'd been on the list, or the rookie list, for 3 years and played Box Hill reserves. So the amount of work, to identify the talent, and then the resources to develop it over the course of a 3-year period, to the point where when I got there, it was like, hey, well done, here's your list spot. And what's he played? 300 games, 3 premierships.
Yeah.
His CV looks pretty good. Now, to do that, it's not the senior coach, but you've got to set it up so there's enough personnel to look after this guy's talented, but he needs some work, whether it's physically, mentally, off-field, on-field. There's so much to work on.
John, third group, low talent, high readiness.
Oh, this would be
interesting. So this is an important group, this one here, the low talent, high readiness.
Where's this going?
Simmo
Where's
was,
your name?
Tried really hard, but probably a little bit low on the talent perspective, but really tried hard. And Kane did a great job over the years. And Gaz, I'm not too sure you'd be that happy being sort of bracketed in there, whether you had the low talent, high readiness. You tried really hard, be fair to say.
Yep. No, I love the fact that you're firing a couple of bullets back. So
it makes me worry about the fourth category.
There's a fourth category.
Yeah, where is Jerry?
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at the fourth category, obviously, low talent and low readiness. And that's not the bracket you'll want to spend too much time in, Jared, but we're not talking about your media career. Clearly, that's absolutely the top end. But your football career, I'm assuming, might have been somewhere down the bottom left-hand corner in the low talent, low readiness. Is it fair to say?
I'm not getting a lot of the coaches.
Beautifully
time.
done.
Well done. One piece of vision to finish with, Collingwood's DNA.
Yeah, and I didn't realise how many Collingwood supporters are in this building.
Yeah.
So I've been stitched up a little bit because we did Collingwood a couple of weeks ago, and then suddenly, you know, Tim and Jake and these guys, why don't you do Collingwood again? So I've learned a little bit from this, but we did cut a bit of vision a few weeks ago about just what does Collingwood do, what's their DNA, and I think perhaps as we go throughout the year we can sort of dial in on some teams about how they play. So if you roll the vision, it's pretty obvious, but it's also unique to them where they're pretty slow in these plays, but they all know where it's going because you see the pointing, you see the guy with the ball pointing. This happens a lot. I'm going down the line. We're going to set up for it. Here it comes. You've got a half forward who's ready to rip through, and you've got midfielders who their job is to stay at the front. So the balance around the stoppage is a licence for a forward. Every club has a certain look at this, but that activates speed. So we'll get our speed from these plays. Forward stretch as they win the ball, and then this is what I call a bit of a freedom within a discipline. Do what you want within the rules, and they do this really well. You know, talent takes over a little bit. This is the interesting bit. Pressure now is number one priority for Collingwood. And while that pressure's on, defenders get on the outside, they own perimeter. We spoke about the moment a few weeks ago. So while that pressure's happening, if Fremantle get the ball and they look up, as you see Ryan in a second here, this will be shown on a Monday. He's got nowhere to go. Pressure continues. He's forced to revert to go back to the other side. And now they're really set up for a turnover in the front half. So it's not pretty football. It's not this perfect play. There's turnovers within this play and a rush kick. Moore's in the right position for a spoil. They get the crumb and they finish off with a really, really good, clever goal. So the DNA for Collingwood is pretty...
Yep.
That's how I describe the way they play. Horse, that's what you've seen over the years as well?
Yeah, and I think the best game plans are really predictable. Everyone knows what they're doing. So it's not about keeping secrets from anyone. It's actually about the execution of it and doing it better than anyone else. And that's what Collingwood have perfected.
That was very much Collingwood-Geelong at the MCG, that game, and Geelong had to change it up to get through. And they made the change, and they did. But that's exactly what you showed there.
And that's what makes them plug and play.
Yep.
Well, yeah, they lose 5 players, just go play your role. You know, if you're a forward, you're doing this. If you're a mid, so it's and they're not the only team, by the way. A lot of teams do similar things, but in a different way.